That's maybe what we're talking about. No. Oh. There's so many. How do I get the Zoom URL? The right one is, it's in the calendar. Google was giving me a really hard time copying and pasting the URL, because the URL behind that text there, if I just right click on that and say copy URL, they give me some mangled URL. Somebody taught me this too. If you put pointy brackets around it, it takes away the commercial for Zoom.
Yeah, any URL. Yeah.
Early brackets.
Okay. So what I would like to do is work with Joshi real quick on getting the. Oh, that's something to talk about. But RChain API.
So once we have something to make officially part of the community, this is the process we have to go through to move it to the community space. Right?
Well, something like that. Yeah, it's less about official and more about getting the forked from things right and preserving the issues when you move stuff around. So originally, Joshi started it here, and then I forked from here, and I'd like to be forked from the RChain community thing. And I think I created one in RChain community, but it doesn't have the stars and watchers and issues. So wait, this is RChain community. What happened here? We go to Joshi's. Oh boy.
What are you realizing that's giving you concern?
Well, now there's stars on both of them. I think.
Oh yeah, that's right. More important to me is the fork structure. It looks like these people have forked mine, which makes sense because it was the first one. There were no forks on RChain API.
Right. Which is surprising because I think I forked it at one point, but maybe I unforked it or something. Okay, so what I want to do is rename this one to move it out of the way, and then have you move yours in. Does that make sense? And then you can call it back. I mean, fork it back.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Then the only, oh God, I had a question and I forgot what it. Oh yeah, there's like open PRs and everything. That'll all just get moved over to the new one as is, I guess.
Cross your fingers. Where's the
my PRs, at least I still have my local branches, so it wouldn't be a disaster anyway. We'd just recreate them.
Yeah. Okay, so now I don't think I can do the move. I think you have to do the move. So you have to go here, and because I don't have a settings button here.
You want to share your screen, Joshi?
Joshi's on mute.
Sorry about that. I said so many things. I do want to share, but I can't because I just updated and I'm on Wayland now instead of X11 and I can't screen share. I hope to get that worked out in the next few days. But this is a short step. It won't take long. You won't miss much. So I'm on my repo settings page and I see the transfer button. Type the name of the repo to confirm. That is RChain API. New GitHub username or organization, that is all lowercase RChain-community, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I understand transfer the repository. That's one it really been nice to have you guys look into, but I think it's fine. Password. Please select any teams you wish to have access to RChain Community, RChain API, and the options are learning and dev tools.
Both? I don't know. I checked something last time. I don't remember.
Yeah. I guess to me that feels more like a dev tool. I think that can always be modified if we need to.
Probably.
Moving repository to RChain Community, RChain API, this may take a few minutes. Okay, I think that went how we expected.
Okay, and when we talked with Chris, we agreed to make this lowercase. Shall I do that?
Yeah, that sounds good. Oh, it's there already. Oh, wonderful.
Right.
And it's got the stars and watchers and forks.
And I don't seem to have a settings doodad.
Oh, shoot. Okay, let's see. Oh, I hope I do. Let me get over there. Yeah, I don't either actually. So we might need help from Thomas or someone who's an admin on this org.
That's surprising because
I think he may have made us admins on individual repos.
yeah, but you created that thing.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So here's one that I put there, and I don't have a settings doodad. Oh, but that was forked from Peter's. That's why I thought I didn't have. This one I put here. No settings doodad. All right, so no rename. Oh, let's see. Oh, issues 0? Is that right?
You don't know. We should have checked closer. Well, click in there and see if there's any closed.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That looks like it probably worked correctly.
Okay, so
It may be that you should have chosen the learning team. Maybe you're on that team, not the dev team.
Oh, that's a good thought.
all right, the one other thing is that in the wrong droids one, I think there's some issues. 14 of them, holy moly. I read someplace that you can move issues now. Oh, I have a settings thing here.
Ooh, it's official. That I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's very new.
That's cool.
Transfer this issue. Okay. Right sidebar. Oh, there it is. All right, I'm confused.
Must have admin permissions on the repository.
That you're transferring an issue into.
Yeah, so that's the problem.
Boring. All right, the other place that we were discussing this is yeah. Oops. Well, that was progress.
Yeah, I think we're blocked by now. I don't feel like I have that strong of a relationship with him, but it would be nice if one of us were admins on that whole org. I don't know if he's ready to give that out. I feel like when you grab the name RChain Community, you have to be willing to share a little bit, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think he would if we asked.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Does anybody have him on on their calendar?
What do you mean? Like, so we can see when we could get time with him?
Yeah. Does anybody have an appointment with him? A meeting when you expect to see him?
No, I don't.
All right. He's been responsive via GitHub issues traditionally.
Yeah. Cool. So I think we're done for now, probably, right?
Yeah. I did another one of my OCAP refactors. Could show that to you guys.
For what project?
In the integration test for the main one here. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, there's a robot that's doing all these things. So it's like Dan rewrote the whole thing. But so I rewrote it to use docopt. One downside of docopt I discovered is that if you enter the wrong, if you put -pp instead of -- peers amount, it just says pad usage. It doesn't say, unrecognized P, did you mean this or anything like that. I discovered that issue's been reported against docopt a few times without much result, but I went with it anyway. because, okay, so this is the current code, but I'll show you the previous one. Mm-hmm. Where's the view button? Boring. Okay, this file is scripts boot PDB. Right, so the first thing you might notice is that this file is kind of useless if you were gonna, well, maybe not useless. Yeah, if you were gonna import this as a module, it would get to here and then exit your whole program. So this thing is kind of useless as a module. It can only be used as a script. And so the other thing is it says define globals. I'm like, my eyes, my eyes. So there's all this stuff, about a third of which is not used at all, by the way. So I was trying to figure out, like, what does this code do? And so there's all these global variables that are used all over the place. So it was hard to tell what was going on for me. A lot of the code is not inside any function, so it's just like, all this stuff gets executed no matter what you do. Like, it creates a Docker environment. This is like a big OCAP no-no, right? It just, that's using ambient authority to do all kinds of stuff. So I went and changed it. So the funny thing is, in the result, I think the code is actually correct. The old code. I didn't actually, once I figured out what it was doing, it was okay. But they merged my PR anyway. So yeah, now if you just import it without running it as a script, it won't run any code. It'll just define a bunch of things. And so here's all the actual powerful stuff. It needs access to the file system and a random number and the command line arguments and the clock and to be able to sleep. And it creates key pairs out of randomness, and it accesses Docker. So that's not all that relevant to life as we know it, but that's FYI from what I did. The other thing I did was, Joshie, have you seen the results of being able to do unforgeable names?
Yeah, I was going to ask if you could show that. That would be great.
Yeah, because there's a little bit of debugging to do on that, in fact. Okay, I'm going to go back to right. So it's a pending pull request, I guess. Right.
I have one of those opened. Oh, those came. Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, so this can't be merged because I broke my own rules about static type checking or something. But I just committed it because it was, it worked on my desktop. Mm-hmm. Okay, so right, in the current version, we have this integration test, live RNode test. Oh, by the way, this is fine to do at the top level. These are not powerful.
I know you always say that. I don't remember why you think that though. Oops. Oh yeah.
Oh, they actually obey OCAP discipline. You have to pass all the authority in. They don't magically reach out into the world. You have to pass all the authority.
Oh yeah. Okay. Right. But so let me ask you this then: is there an advantage to doing it at the global level or at the top level? Because then my requires are in two different spots.
Well, it's more conventional.
Okay.
Yeah, I tend to put the requires just down into anyway. Yeah, the things that go down here are exceptions to me. They're when somebody wrote their code the wrong way. Or, well, I mean, the file system would be one that sort of naturally fits down here. But anybody who just magically accesses the file system in the middle of their code is like, dude, if you just let me pass you the file system pointer, then everything would be okay. All right. That's not what I'm the main thing here. Okay, so here's our integration test. We deploy this code, which makes a new private name and then gets its hands-on standard out. And then it shows us the identity ID of the private thing. And it sends, just a string to that private name. And then it sends the private name to a public name. And then in the future, we expect this to sort of not work, or at least not work between nodes, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay. So we wanted to be able to read this, get this text into JavaScript off the chain. So we deploy that code, and then we listen for data at name public because we know it, right? It's something we can listen on. So then we get back the private name by listening, because we get back the results of this. And then we listen on the private name, and sure enough, it'll print out, get this text into JavaScript. I could check this code out and run it, or Joshy could, or somebody else could, or whatever. Let's see. I'm going to pick a random audience member and see if that makes sense to you. Ed?
Yeah, it does make sense. You said that something like so as long as someone else doesn't publish stuff on public before this or after this that you accidentally get, you'll get the thing. You'll get the private name there.
Yeah, so somebody else could send to that name too, and it would screw with our world.
Right.
Yeah.
You couldn't run a lot of these in parallel and expect a consistent result.
Okay, so that was the state of the art before I wrote some code in the last few days. So
can I ask a question? You said that are the public names going away, or you said you couldn't do it cross node? Could you elaborate?
Yeah, so this thing here, my understanding is that they are going to sort of treat that as a no-op. And I'm not sure at what level they're going to treat it as a no-op. It could be that, like when you're in eval mode, it'll work or something, but then when you're in Casper mode, it won't, or it'll work on your node, but when somebody tries to replay it, it won't. That would be weird. I don't know what they're going to do at that point. I don't know if it'll throw an exception or not send it or what, but they've said.
Okay, just want to know how long that's going to be around. Thanks.
Yeah. My impression is that it was going to be a 7.x thing.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to, and then they changed that plan because a lot of their contracts used the public names too, and they weren't ready to. I think there's a PR open for exactly how they're going to remove them, but I don't know how to read it.
Right, but my impression was that they were going to actually finish the job in a dot release on 7 dot something.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh yeah, that could be.
Okay. Then. So I also made it an async function because it's easier to read, Joshy.
Yeah, nice. So we're gonna race to see who merges their PR first. This one or my listen for continuation one, because they both have that change.
Right. Okay, so the first line is we're going to actually use, okay, so here we don't set the user thing at all. There's a field called user in here, which is somebody's public key. I think it's supposed to be the public key of the validator that deploys this code. In any case, it's supposed to be some public key. And it's part of the computation that goes into the identity of, or the sort of deterministic unforgeable names computation. So I grabbed a real public key that I had used in some signing tests or something like that. And H,
And what's HB2?
H to B is hex to binary.
Okay, got it.
Hex to bytes, I think, right? It's a byte array.
Yes, correct. All right, and then I get the time, the current time, and I convert it to milliseconds. And I'm going to ask for 3 names. And then, okay, so then I'm going to call this new node at gRPC that I wrote the other end of. And so these are the things you have to give it. The public key, the timestamp, and how many names you want. And this part I'm pretty sure works. Which window am I set up to do it in? Yeah. So if I run this, so those are the 3 unforgeable names, the next 3 unforgeable names.
Mm-hmm.
And if I look, so we got 9.4c, and where's my, yeah. So it actually printed them out in 9.4c, and then 3E678, 3E678. Now the third one, do I not use it? Let's see.
It's there. It's on the next line.
A06. Oh, okay. So there's another case where, no, see, this one, it doesn't work. It's not clear match. So the code that it's deploying is this. So the first 2 are just simple top-level names.
Oh, right.
And then it does some sending and blah, 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 and then it does a new X down here. So the point is we're not able to predict this down here. Or, yeah.
So I can provide some context about how I definitely won't be able to tell you like what code will make that work, but I can at least give you a high-level overview of how that works.
Yeah, my impression is that a Rolang interpreter is necessary to get that.
Okay.
But go ahead and tell everybody else what you know about that.
Well, okay, right. So the idea is that in order to implement these, Kyle used something called a split random number generator. So it looks like so far what you've done is used it as a normal random number generator where you can just call next as many times as you want and you'll get a deterministic sequence of pseudo-random numbers.
Yep.
So the additional, in order to make it a splittable random number generator, there's an additional method. It's not just next. There's also one called split.
This is called next.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. So when you call split, so when you call next, what you're given back is a pseudo-random number and it mutates the state of rand, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So with split, it's going to give you back a new random state, another one that you can also call next or split on, and I guess also mutate the state of rand or maybe give you back a second one or something. But somehow you end up with now 2 actual random number generator states, both of which have next and split methods. And so if the Rolang code is just, new XYZ ABCD in whatever, those are all going to work with what Dan did. That's just next every time. But then once you get into the body, after it's new X in whatever, now we actually start to use that splittable feature. So it looks like there's 2 things in par here, a send and a for.
Yeah.
And so it's going to call split, and it's going to, oh God, let's see if I can think about this right. Definitely for things with bodies like that for, it's going to call split and pass a new random state into there. And I think it might call split for every one of those things in par, like the send and the receive, because each one of them gets a random state. And here's the really tricky part. I think we might be able to pretty easily reproduce, like if you had just done a new X2 inside of that new X0, X1 out. But since you've got an actual COM event coming together, we have to then merge the random state from the send on X0 back together with the continuation, that for whatever from X0. And that gives us the random state that we can then use to make new X2 inside the continuation.
Right.
So that's what's ahead of us. So yeah.
Yeah, and I don't plan to do all that. For my use cases, it's enough to just be able to get as many of these as you need.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Okay,
That's definitely very useful and very good progress that we can all use.
Right. So this is just the thing that prints them out. Oh no, this is the one that works. Yeah. So if I change this one to term X and this one to term and run it again, so now I get 3 random numbers, 8, 7, and E. And then if I go over to here, I get 8, 7, and E. So this is the simple case that works. If you just do new X, Y, Z,
right,
you can predict what those are. All right, so the reason we wanted all that, okay, so we deploy that code. And the reason we wanted it, this basically takes, what we got back was just the hex stuff, just the bytes that go inside, and to actually make a name, you know, a Rolang name, there's a bunch of other crud that looks like this. So now it's an actual Rolang name that we can wait on. So we listen for data at name there and then print it out. And this is where my changing this thing to an async function seems to have gone wrong because, oh, there it is. I see what was going on. Yeah, it does work. It's just that when I run it with this code.
There was no data at X in that case.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
Yeah, great. That looks like it's working to me.
Right. So we can deploy code, and then actually, so there's no public name involved here, right? We just said new X, and we're basically listening from, well, we sent, within the blockchain world, we sent something to the name X, and then outside the blockchain world, where we're just sort of looking at the blockchain, we're seeing what's at that name X. That's what XPAR is about. And we can print it out. And there it is. So if I had changed this to something like 23, we would expect this to print out 23. Oh, string 23. That's surprising.
Yeah, that is surprising. So I'm also surprised that worked at all, although maybe I shouldn't be, because you didn't create a fresh node that second time around, right? Oh, no, duh. That you get start with a new random seed for every deploy, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so of course it
Yeah, so I didn't fix the timestamp here. I used the actual current time.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah.
So if I had fixed the timestamp here, it would say no new deploys. You can't deploy the same public key and timestamp twice.
So you're looking at why we got a string 23 back?
Yeah.
I think the par that comes back, you don't really know whether it's an integer or a string. It's just inside the par.
Well,
Do you?
It has that field like called something about what type of instance it is.
Oh.
wait, data with block info.
Yeah. So repeated par, that makes sense. We're going to get several of them.
So this is what our API is supposedly returning.
That's what.
What I sometimes do is print out the whole par to, standard out or print line so that I can see the whole par.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
just at least for debugging, which is.
Yeah, but I think we are, oh, to Rolang, I see. We're converting it to Rolang. What the heck? This should be from Rolang or something.
Oh, maybe that explains why we got those extra quotes on all the other times too. That's definitely better.
A little, yeah.
But still a little bit trippy, right?
So if I do a more normal, yeah.
That's cool.
So would you mind walking through this again a little slower for me?
Sure.
So just one minor comment on the, this, I guess it's the seed material, the user, what I thought I heard at one point is the user really isn't checked. There could be a convention there, but it's not used anywhere else to assure that it's unique or equals to whoever signed the payload. It's just a convention or whatever you want to put in there.
Well, okay, so currently they are not making you pay for deploys, right?
Yeah.
And they're not making you sign your deploys, right?
Okay. So that'll be used once they check the signature.
I believe so. I know.
Okay.
I know that they do check for uniqueness.
Okay. Okay.
If I put like,
yeah, the deploy will say it's not a new thing, right?
so I can do this once, but then if I try to do it again, it'll say no new deploy.
Got it. Yeah.
But you guys do, just so everybody's aware, you do remember the problem around this, right? They're not checking that quite right yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. If you change your code, it still will take it at the moment, but ultimately probably shouldn't.
Okay. So Ed, can you help me learn?
Well, so I understand how you're, doing a deploy. I think you must have a proposed block in there, a create block in there. I see it there, and then you're getting data back and then printing it out. So how do you know what to listen for? Are you listening to an unforgeable name channel, or are you listening to a predictable channel here?
Both.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, as a trick question.
Deterministic unforgeable name.
I'm sorry. It's early here. Okay, so how did you determine that name? That's the question.
Right. I asked the node on this line here.
Okay, and so yeah, you wrote preview private names recently, right? And are you putting that in? Is that in current dev now?
Yeah, I saw it got merged.
Oh, really?
Or I'm pretty sure.
Okay. So that's pretty cool. So that the only risk that might be the case is that's sort of in the clear, so to speak, between nodes. If someone was listening to traffic or something, they might be able to do something evil with that unforgeable name. But
yeah, it's programming in glass houses, right? Everybody can see what you're doing.
Yes. So that's the only downside. But hey, this will get me over one of the challenges I have, which is I need this.
Yeah,
most of us are stuck on the lack of this.
Yes, great.
It is merged.
So I don't even think that's a downside, really. Like that, all that someone could learn here is what your unforgeable name IDs are, but they can always check that out just by inspecting the tuple space on the blocks anyway. Or, as Kyle mentions, it is technically impossible for anyone to predict these names anyway. So I don't know if we're leaking any secret information this way.
That doesn't ring true with me intuitively, but you may be right. But you can't necessarily understand who owns which unforgeable names or who created which unforgeable names for which purposes.
Oh, I see. Okay. You're saying
Here's a question, Josh, if this is the validator's public key, then there is a real weakness here. It's like, you know, I write some code to, oh, okay, if they disallow, right, you know, the exploit that you wrote where you have the two deploys with the same user and timestamp with different code, and they can sneak data across, right?
Yeah, so that needs to be fixed, but then I think we're good to go. So it should be that only those two lines you've checked there are compared and must be unique, right? And
yeah, I was just thinking somebody else could deploy code through the same validator and steal my stuff, but if they get their stuff deployed using that timestamp before I do, then my deploy won't go out. So
yeah, right.
Well, it's the whole signature eventually, right? It's these things plus the signature that's generated with this as input.
I don't believe so.
Although that's a pretty nice design. Maybe the signature over the deploy is what should seed the random state.
I thought that's what would be the design.
That seems like a good idea in my couple seconds of thinking about it.
Okay.
I haven't seen any plans in those directions, but yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
I think the problem is that the signature has to be by a bonded account, right? So it can't be the user signature there.
So I think we should distinguish which signatures were. There's definitely a signature over an entire block that comes from a bonded validator. And at the moment, that's the only signature. But I think the plan is that in the future, every deployer will have to sign their own deploys, and then the bonded validator will sign the entire block.
That makes sense.
Since we want the random number generator to be seeded on a per deploy basis, we have to take per deploy, at least something that's per deploy into the seed. And so right now that's the timestamp. But yeah, I think deploy sig could be a good seed also.
So we have two, okay, wallet address. I hope that's a public key. It's a string.
well, is it wallet public key or is it wallet address?
It says wallet address and it's a string, unlike user, which is a public key, which is bytes.
All right.
So
definitely the syntax that people have been using from so far is like quote 0x whatever quote.
yeah, I'm pretty sure this is not consumed at all by the Scala code yet.
Yeah.
And maybe when it's actually consumed, they'll change it from string to bytes or something. I don't know. That's kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I wish that comment on the user field were more specific, like who's public key.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of which, somebody asked for.
Oh, I'm so happy. Dude, you've done kick-ass work the last couple of days.
Yes, you have, Dan.
So this, I haven't put any text around the things, but there's now an opportunity to. So if we went, if we went like that, and then. Oh, hey, how come it didn't?
Do you have to rebuild these docs or something?
I just did.
Oh, really? What did you, can you do that a little slower? I wouldn't mind learning this technique too.
Yeah, once I get it sort of working, just a
Yeah,
sec.
that
But
sounds.
is it not running? That could be why. Ah, yeah. No, wrong directory.
So that's compiling your protos down to these docs HTML?
Actually, no. But one moment. There we go. Okay. So this shows that we're winning. Okay. So how did we get there? So I'll change it one more time. Okay. So this is capsformessage.proto, and we can see the path down there. This is in the core RChain code under a thing called models. I have no idea why they call them models, but they do. Source main protobuf, and then caspermessage.row. And so like right next to that is row types.proto, which tells you the structure of a par, stuff like that. Okay. So, and there's a certain amount of documentation there now, but it just said public key. So we changed it to say public key and talk about the validator. Okay. Then, okay, so I'm not going to get to the view press thing just yet. There is a thing called Proto-C GenDoc, which is a plugin for Proto-C, which is the protobuf compiler. And
Yep.
so we're going to run these two proto files through that doodad, you know, magic, 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 and out comes some markdown, right? So I'll do this compile in order to run to get our, I changed validating to validator, right?
Yeah, right.
I'll look at our node.
Can we talk about your make file again for a sec though before you hide that? So your target is rnode proto md, right? And then deploy protos is just a path, and you complete it with putting /Casper message, right? And
Yeah.
then what's that? That next thing is just another proto file that you're also building here, diagnostics.proto.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then what's all this stuff? Oh, that's make file. That means that's a dependency, right? Like you can't run this thing until you've already built both of those two things.
Correct. And if these change, you know, if these change, that means this needs to get rebuilt.
Okay, right. And then once the dependencies are satisfied, what this target actually does starts on the next line with proto-C.
Right.
Okay, got it. And then what are all those -I options?
That means those are, you know, include, in other words, look there for stuff and look there for stuff.
Okay, got it.
It's,
okay, cool.
If you've ever used a C compiler, it's the same, you know, -I on a C compiler does the same thing.
Okay, cool. And then I see doc-opt is markdown. That all seems pretty readable. Okay, cool. Thank you for pausing there.
Yeah, now, one thing that's kind of squirrely is that all of the options to this plugin have to get stuck into one option to Proto-C. So there's a whole bunch of syntax here that's like
yeah.
bizarro. Okay, but if I look at the current version of, which is now currently out of date, so this one says validating, right? And that one says validator.
Mm-hmm.
But if I run make, and then Emacs is not smart enough to know that it needs to update at that point. Now, so it rebuilt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if anybody was really paying attention, this thing up here wiggled as soon as I said make. Because meanwhile, there's a thing called viewpress, which is actually watching this markdown file. And it rebuilt, well, it sort of noticed that, and I think it actually, yeah, it told my browser to reload.
Nice.
So if I actually edit the, let me do that here. If I edit the markdown over here,
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's the ViewPress thing.
Nice. So this published page on the left, is that just in your space currently, and or is that live somewhere or going to be live soon?
It's currently, well, it's at localhost right now.
Yeah.
The other place where there's similar stuff, this is available to everybody. Where should I stick it?
Stick it in about 6 Discord channels.
So we get 6 different threads going. Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Okay. So this is some stuff that Peter Mormon and a few other people and I have been working on. And exactly what's the scope of this and when it's going to go live, where, who knows. So, but one thing that I kind of realized is that the bomb that went off recently affected developer.rchain.coop. So we may scope it to do this sort of stuff.
How you meaning that was maintained by Pyrofex before?
It was certainly hosted by Pyrofex. I don't know who actually changed the words on it.
Yeah, also Pyrofex. Steve Warner mostly. But yeah, but now it's like no one or Derek Barrett's or something, I think, right?
Yeah, it's currently no one, yeah.
Oh, speaking of no one, what's the intentions of the two of you or others on the architecture document? It's so tempting to just pull it down.
And I think that's a good question for you, right? You wrote that thing. Like I think your vision matters a lot. Like my hope when I had started to touch it was that it could be basically like still what's the vision for RChain, you know, not necessarily what's a spec for Mercury. But I don't know. What do you want to see happen with it?
Well, the main concern I have is that as soon as possible, people that are coming into the project relatively new aren't seeing misinformation. And so, you know, things have changed so much since the time it was written and so forth. You know,
I did manage this much.
Oh, very good. I'm glad to see that. Very glad to see that. Except for developer.rchain.coop, I didn't know. But it's at least a step forward. Thank you. I didn't see that. So others might, and then so the date is still old, but that's probably okay. So the challenge is, you know, I could contribute some to it, but just like others on the project, so no, I'm not getting paid, so I have to choose what I'm spending time on in a way that I think is going to pay off, which has been wallet for me thus far. So I would like to see this, you know, as simplified as possible, but accurate.
Yeah, yeah. Josh and I talked about now how available we are going forward is totally unknown at this point. Well, maybe anyway. I'm not promising that I'm available, but Josh and I did talk about this and thought about, well, whenever we find details that are wrong, we would just, instead of working really hard to fill in all the details that are right, we would just sort of delete the details.
Yeah, I'm good with that approach.
One thing that made me feel stuck on this project was in a lot of places, you know, I think in a lot of places we either know like this decision hasn't been made yet, so we'll be kind of general, or we know what decision's been made and we can just type it in. But in a lot of other places, I don't have a clear sense of what the long-term vision is. Like, for example, when it comes to namespaces, that plan's mutated so many times, and like I guess maybe the people here today are enough to be quorum in some capacity, but like I don't think there's a very clear plan decided on for how namespaces are going to work, and so that kind of made me feel stuck when I was working on it.
Well, to me, the long-term plan is still there. A namespace is a set of names, and you write a formula to say what the set of names is.
But in a lot of places in this document, or at least the talk, it was about shards. Really, the name that came out. It was a subset of the greater blockchains or set of blockchains, and it came to be semi-equivalent to shards. But namespace, of course, is a general computer science term that is really confusing when you try to use it in a specific way here.
Well, this page is reasonably clear. Let's see. Actually, this is less clear now that I've read about it.
So this is getting into, well, they wouldn't have to be shards in the way that we're implementing for Mercury or shortly after Mercury in the sidechain sense of shards. But so anyway, yeah, this is not easy to write because of these decisions, like Josh was saying. What are we going to actually do?
Well, there's one model in my head that, I'm not quorum, but so Josh, you know what a formula is that says yes to certain names and no to others, right?
I mean, maybe like you're talking about like, does this regex match?
Yes, but you went through that class with Greg, right?
I went through the computational calculus class, yeah.
Right, and towards the end, we switched. We went up a level from Rolang to formulae about Rolang, right?
Yeah, that might not be super fresh in my mind, but I'm happy to talk about it still.
Jake, GitHub. Anybody remember Jake's GitHub name? Or no, I think it's called RChain.
RChain collaborative learning.
Now, were these scribble files? Okay. Does anybody remember? Did he have some
super well organized?
Well, I didn't mean to get deep on this subject. Sorry if I took us off track.
I'm happy to be talking about this. I agree with you totally, Ed, that this is a big need, and it could stand to be revised and branded a little bit.
Not only that, it's one of the more interesting parts of the project, and it's just fun to think about it.
Yeah, exactly. Another thought regarding sharding, my hope was that since we finally made the decision not to implement this like tree-style sharding for Mercury, my hope was that maybe we would never implement the tree-style sharding and say like, well, that didn't make it into Mercury. Now that Mercury's out, let's go back and do like a more interesting kind of sharding that's closer to what we had promised or hoped for originally. But again, I'm not a project manager, and I don't have much of a voice in there in the decision-making part, so I don't really know what's going to happen.
I think an important aspect of sharding is that there's some independence of the shards.
Yeah,
they're not going to fail globally. I mean, I'm comfortable with the more of a sidechain model.
Right, and they're not all running Rev, really.
Necessarily, right?
No, I think by definition they're not running Rev. Only the root shard is running Rev.
Well, I think Jim is talking more about his vision than any particular.
I'm sorry. I'm talking about what I understand will likely happen just after Mercury.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shoot,
I mean, Ed's
materials. Anyway, I wish I could reconstruct it reasonably quickly, but you can write do you remember the formula for a server that never stops?
For a what?
Server that never stops?
No, I don't. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I thought I did a pretty good job being thorough on those, but I maybe just forgot a bunch of stuff.
It's in
a server that never stops? That seems pretty concrete for the computational calculi course.
It's in the Rolang 0.2 spec, I think. This is behavioral types. Um, I think it's in here anyway. Oh, darn, it's not in here. Let's see.
So anyway, the rabbit hole we're down is something about sharding, and I guess maybe Dan, while you're searching, Ed, I wouldn't mind hearing your thoughts about, like, you know, as someone who's been a huge part of the vision for this project, like, do you think it's a good idea to do the tree style sharding in the short term, or should we be going for something more similar to like the power set or lattice sharding that was originally proposed?
Yeah, it's a little beyond my technical grasp to have an opinion on the trade-offs across these, or necessarily that. One of the things that Mike Stay mentioned a while ago was, you know, what's once behavioral types are put into Venus was the original plan.
Mm-hmm.
Then the current root shard will become a sub shard, essentially, of a new parent shard, is what I thought I understood.
Yeah, I read that somewhere too.
So part of the answer to this, Joshi, is how do things evolve, and how can they evolve smoothly from, you know, the initial Mercury release to some sharding solution to some behavioral type solution.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't have the chops to weigh in on that.
Okay.
But that evolution story is reasonably straightforward. You know, for Venus, you do a new genesis, and part of the genesis says, "Oh yeah, there was that old thing, and we respect that money too."
Right. That totally makes sense. That whole plan, I think, was put together after we had already decided on a tree-based sharding structure, though, right? That's the world in which that story makes sense.
Well, it sort of makes sense for all hard forks.
Well, versus a namespace based approach. Is that what you're saying, Joshi?
Yeah, or like the first version of RChain's sharding solution that I heard back in April was the power set scheme for sharding. And it's not clear to me. I mean, I'm not saying it can't work, but I don't have my head wrapped around how making work, like, I don't even know what the concept of child shard means in that scheme. Like, it's really clear in the tree structure what child means, but I'm not sure. I guess I'm not clear on, this is why I'm not qualified to write the vision doc or the architecture document, because I don't even know, like, are people now thinking that tree sharding is all we could ever want and we're going to be happy with it? Or is that another thing that we're still doing along the way to, like, keep the investors happy, and then hopefully we'll get to the real thing later?
Yeah, and I can't answer that. You know, Greg is the holder of the vision, and previously, you know, Mike Stay was right there with him, you know, working at, and you know, when necessary, Nash would and Meta would come in with and others on the dev team would come in with the details, right? But that's sort of missing that vision team has changed.
Yeah, right. Well, and that's, well, yeah. Right. So who's the vision team now? Is it just Greg?
I think the evolution part of it is important. No, I like the starting with the side chain idea. It's not necessarily so that they don't support common currencies or tokens. What's important for evolution, in my view, is that the contracts between the shards are flexible, and you can make any kind of contract with another shard. Now, I know Greg's concern is that if you have rolling at that level, you have to, you know, clearly have proof of correctness. before you can move forward with it. But that's the evolutionary future I see, where you have the flexibility to evolve contracts among the shards. And I mean, the correspondence is between the shard and the namespace is sort of a misnomer in that the namespaces can have remote references in them within the shard. So we're really looking at the local subset of the namespace that the shard can handle independently. But it's not exclusive of external references. I think that's the confusion there.
I followed most of that, Jim. Yeah, if the contract mechanism is there to allow shards, hierarchical or otherwise, that's cool. And if the namespace expression can refer to things within the shard, that's clear. It's yeah. What happens when you start referring to things outside of the shard, and you have to refer to shard by name or something like that? So we know root. We could imagine /a/a/1 or whatever. But then we start getting into assumptions about the hierarchy again. So, like, what's the proper way? Do we have a convention to refer to a shard in a name within that shard as, you know, essentially a URN or something like that?
Yeah, I think it would be a URN convention.
It'd be nice to have that. That'll be needed as soon as the first shard is created beyond root.
Well, I mean, there's already a name for a place for a shard name.
Oh, okay. So we just need the URN convention for it, probably.
Well, at the moment, it's just that every shard has a string associated with it that they call shard ID. Yeah. Gonna dive in there. Yeah, that's the one. What is the yeah, that's what I wanted to see. Block info.
Block info.
So one of the properties of every block is a shard ID.
So is that intended to be globally unique, or is that correspond to a fork of, if RChain were to fork in the future, I guess you'd have the same shard ID in two forks.
Yeah, right. The last conversation I was part of was me suggesting that be the hash of the Genesis block.
Oh. Okay.
As opposed to being like, you know, just like right now it's set to RChain, all lowercase.
But that's a catch-22, right? Because you have to have a shard ID in order to do the Genesis ceremony.
Is that true?
Well, you got to send blocks around, right?
Well, when the first block is sent, that's the end of the Genesis ceremony. Like the Genesis ceremony calculates the Genesis block. So like maybe the Genesis block doesn't have one, and or it just is a duplicate data with block hash.
What are the nodes sending to each other
During the Genesis ceremony?
Yeah.
The master of ceremonies is sending to each of the other nodes a candidate block that hasn't yet been approved, and then each of the other nodes in the ceremony, if they agree with what's in that block, like, you know, the rev balances and when it was created and all that stuff, then they sign it and send it back. And then after the master of ceremonies aggregates enough signatures, then they call it the approved block and they send it back out to everyone, and now the network's live.
Okay, so they would have to compute that hash before they sign the Genesis block, right?
No, I think I mean, what you're describing is a could be phrased as a problem with every block, right? Like you have to agree on the block before you can hash it and agree on its hash. And so I think with the Genesis block, you just agree with it, then you hash it, then you put that hash into both the block hash field, and then if optionally the shard ID field, or we just say we're going to leave that blank for Genesis blocks.
You could pass this in via a config file or command line.
No. I think what he's saying is coherent. In other words, when you agree with the wallets and stuff, you put the same thing in the block hash field and the shard ID, and then you sign it, right?
That's interesting. The problem, I was thinking we aggregate. So here's what I was stuck on. All of us Genesis validators are sending SIGs of a candidate back to the Master of Ceremonies. Then the Master of Ceremonies, when it's all done, sends to each of us validators the same block plus all of the aggregated signatures, so that I can, because I don't want to trust the Master of Ceremonies to say like, yep, we got 100 SIGs. I want to check and say like, okay, yep, this one's Dan's and it was valid. This one's Jim's and it was valid. So I need to get all of those SIGs back. So I think the block hash is computed including all of those SIGs. I guess I don't know that though for sure. But
Okay.
it seems like it should be, because otherwise the SIGs could be modified later.
Yeah, or a hash that includes a SIG, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how it's going to work, but I would expect that we would want to be able to bond a shard to a network after Genesis. I mean, if we create a shard in Tampa Bay, we would eventually want to connect that to the main shard. I mean, in the case where it's contractual, it's simply a matter of what's the contract for joining a shard, and how do we write that contract and prove its correctness.
Yeah, definitely in the tree model of sharding, we want to be able to add child shards at any time. That's for sure. All right. Well, so anyway, all of that to say, Ed, that's why I felt like I stalled out on rewriting the RChain.
Yeah. So Dan, what's your thoughts on the evolution of the architecture document? What's a healthy way to do this at the moment?
Well, go through and sort of delete the details that are wrong. I'm kind of interested in adding little annotations like this that says, oh, by the way, there's a cost model spec over there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and especially when, almost like you don't need the details once there's a spec, right? Then you can point it.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, the details don't go in this doc once they're formally written up as specs, right?
Right.
This is the human readable overview that links to the specs.
Right.
I like that idea.
and I don't really want to sort of update this so much. Like, it was what it was in the middle of 2017. It was a thought piece that got a lot of people interested.
Yeah. So right. Okay. So see, now you're asking the question that I think we need to answer before we actually make any edits, Dan. And that's what is the purpose of this doc? And if the answer is the purpose of this doc is to represent the way that Ed and Greg and Joe thought about the project in 2017, then that's a totally manageable thing. And
Right.
a notice like the one you've put here is sufficient. Pop it over into your Netlify and make it look red instead of blue, and that's great.
Yeah, and we pulled off the front page of RChain.coop.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and
Well, that's already done. It's not on the front page of RChain.coop.
I thought that was true, but then it appears to be back. It was
definitely on the front page of the blog.
Or somewhere I saw it the other day that was prominent.
Yeah. But the thing is, the other another valid answer to that question of what should this doc be, and one that I'm interested in, it sounds like maybe Greg is interested in, is this doc should still explain the like the living vision for what RChain is going to be.
It's funny. There is a white paper that has a bit of that, but I think a video is not a bad place to do that. But
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I think and that was one of the comments.
I hate the way RChain uses video for everything. You can't search the thing.
I'm sorry. Yes. So that was one of the feedbacks from the H3 Uni workshop, whenever that was, in August or July, I forget when it was, that the vision needed to be more clear and clearly communicated.
Yeah, totally.
I don't think it's improved in terms of the website's obviously improved, but.
Excuse me.
Well, there's been some work done on the website to address it, but okay. Anyway, I'm getting back on my soapbox. So I'm fine with this as a historical document if that's how it's introduced.
I think that is the best, most actionable item that we can work with, and then we avoid any possibility of someone coming along and saying like, well, you guys rewrote history. There was this document in 2017 that explained what you were going to build, and then it got redacted and changed, and so I think it's good to preserve it in its originals.
Okay, so then eventually there should be a new architecture overview written.
Yeah, totally.
Removing stuff that isn't pertinent is reasonable.
Well, it's a slippery slope then. Then the goal is to make it currently accurate, and that's a tall order, especially without the cooperation of Greg and someone like Mike and
any of the devs that are on. Well, I guess Dan is a core dev now, so
yay,
got that field
for another week and a half. Yeah.
So
okay,
I don't know. I motion that we make this a historical piece.
I'm fine with that, and I'll start thinking about a solution for the new architecture.
Yeah, see, and I think that's a really good idea, because writing up the new architecture, like there are prerequisites that are not yet made, which is like deciding what the new architecture is going to be, right? Or like if the new doc is going to be like, here's the vision of where RChain could be in 2 to 3 years, who's the set of people that's qualified to speak to that? Like I would love to be part of it, but definitely I feel like it shouldn't just be me or just like
Right.
a handful of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, cool. Are you down with that plan, Dan, or did you want to dive in and do more editing?
I don't think making a firm decision that makes any sense. I mean, are you going to be around to do the work? I'm not. I don't know if I'm going to be around to do the work. It doesn't.
Right.
Well, if the work is marking it as archived, then yeah, like we can. I think that's a thing that we can be around to handle.
Well, that's done.
But go ahead, Ed.
Should this? I was just going to say, should this be marked up in a different way, more prominent or something? But to me, it's, you look at the date and it's an old document right away. But
yeah, I think well, I don't know. Yeah. I was going to say, like, if we think of this as a print document, there needs to be a page right before the title page that says, by the way, this represents the thinking from a year ago. And then we flip to the title page where it has your name and the 2017 date and gets into the content. Or I don't know. I'm just brainstorming.
I don't feel strongly about if presenting this notice a different way. But to me, this is what came out of my keyboard when I started typing.
Yeah, other than putting it in red, I can't think of a better way to describe it.
Yeah.
And if we don't think developer.rchain.coop is going to stay around, then that might be an issue. But it's good enough for now, I think.
Okay. Cool.
Thanks, Dan.
Let me
I'm
get
frustrated that my closet librarian was not able to come up with the behavioral type examples of a server that never stops and stuff. So I did come up with one that this is a formula for a thing that it only receives and sends on things in that namespace.
Okay, so fee is some namespace. Then that line says that the process P is currently able to take input from a name in the namespace fee and is not, okay, I see the and not capable of input on any name not in that namespace. What is B?
It might be some universally quantified, it's everything.
Okay. Okay, yeah, cool.
Anyway, it was kind of like the ladle stuff where you, okay, here's my programming language. Now I get to put ands and nots and ors in it in order to make formulas. So you can write formulas for, all names that start with X, or all names that are quotes of parallel processes, or,
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. I see what you're saying.
Right.
How did we get on that again?
It was kind of the sharding and namespaces and stuff. Because you can just write down a formula. Like if you got two namespaces and you want to merge them together, you just write A or B.
Okay, sure. Yeah, but there's a whole level of disconnect then between like we can write the math to model this stuff, and then when we go to implement it, like are there polynomial time ways for us to actually calculate what concrete names that we just described?
Welcome to the design of Venus.
Yeah, exactly. And so like that's, I mean, we can't really write up the architecture yet, right? Or you're saying we don't need those details yet?
I think the architecture is this business of writing arbitrary formulas. Making it tractable and doing the engineering is not the architecture.
Ah, interesting. Okay, I see.
Yeah, I sort of looked at the road calculus as sort of an impossible thing anyway. I mean, we're developing it now. I mean, we can write things now, but optimizing them is something that's going to be complicated.
So,
Yeah.
There's an optimization process that has to go on here in order for us to be able to do these kinds of things. Does anybody want to see the aftermath of the Downing thing? I can show it in a minute.
Sure.
Okay, so basically, in our Nginx configuration, we had 7.0.
it has to change to 7.2.
Right, and so I just had to update that to 7.2. And then I had a problem it couldn't find MySQL init, and I installed. I had to install MySQL INI or whatever it is, and that fixed things.
What are the odds you can express that in a pull request as well?
I can.
Would you please? I mean, I don't need you to do it right now.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure exactly how I make a pull request of that.
Well, what file did you edit?
Oh, the site's available for.
Okay, then. Then you can go to might have to go to the prod thing and deploy tasks. And what happened to sites available? Yeah, sites available, RChain rewards. So edit, select all, delete, replace with whatever you got there, and
Right.
pull it.
All right. Oh. I thought I was sharing the screen. This wasn't. The other thing we still haven't done, and I will share my screen, is we have not figured out how to get this change in the menus and the robot deployed, because the changes are made in the inside the add-in or the plugin.
I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'm losing somehow. I'm not seeing your screen, for one thing.
I see the screen.
Jim.
Wow, what am I doing wrong? Okay, there it is. The Windows.
Yeah, we have the horizontal menus, and we didn't actually find out where to change that, but we made some other additions here, but they're inside the template directory, and our attempts to override them outside the template directory so they'd be under Git have failed. That's just for your information.
Okay, you should open an issue. Does that make sense?
Yep. Awesome. Thank you.
I haven't heard anything from Steve. I'm curious if you're just...
Hey, everyone. Oh, I'm just sitting in. I'm here in the Tampa Bay area, just learning and getting familiar to, we're building the Tampa Bay shard. So the more I can and the better off, that effort will progress. So I'm not a coder or developer, more on the business side, but just having a good familiarity with all the technical aspects, I think, will help with the business side efforts.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, so hi Dan, this is Ed. So the phrase shard, do you mean something more than a community or a something that's not affiliated directly with the co-op but has its own agency, or what do you mean by shard?
Well, Jim, you would probably be the best to define that for everyone. Jim is sort of the vision of the Tampa Bay shard effort.
Sure. Our intention is to operate a Tampa Bay area RChain instance, as well as validate on the main RChain shard of Mercury, and hopefully operate a shard for business and personal use within the Tampa Bay area, and serve as a model for other communities that are trying to do the same sort of thing.
Yeah, I think city level currencies make sense.
Sure.
So we're working on getting organized. The first challenge is getting individuals to participate and getting a way for everyone to communicate. So we're at the early stages, and just kind of, we'll have to think through how it's all going to evolve. So, but it'll all work. It'll all be good.
Oh, just for fun.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Talking about how everybody talks to each other. There's a bit of context that I'm missing the picture. Let's see. And okay, so there's this thing. There was this.
Yes, I am familiar with that. I listened to that hour-and-a-half presentation by the creators of Lumio, and that was very valuable.
All right, so you have that context. So they talk about real-time communication stuff, asynchronous and static stuff.
Yes, and to speak to that point, at Jim's suggestion, we started. Our real-time communication tool is going to be Mattermost. It has special functionality, but what we're finding is it's a new tool, and people, some people haven't even accepted the invite, so it's not being utilized. So what we did today was create a channel on the CoLab's Discord called TB Shards. So since everyone that's in TB Shards is already on Discord, and for the most part in CoLab, so we're going to kind of regroup and say, okay, for our real-time communications, let's just use Discord. And then perhaps at some point in the future, we'll transition to Mattermost. That we'll have to kind of figure out. But, with any effort, the first item of business is just getting people to communicate. So I think using Discord will have greater success.
Yeah, starting with where the people actually are.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, that's always.
It's a tool that people are familiar with. Ned Robinson, he's in our group as well. And when we introduced, we're going to use Mattermost as a real-time communication, he was he gave pushback. He was reluctant. Oh, yet another tool. So, I can appreciate that comment. So we're Discord, and then we're going to press on with that. And,
yep.
And then with the asynchronous communication, we're using Lumio. That's what the marketing group, RChain marketing group, was using. That's, once again, it's a new tool. I've sort of initiated that effort, but once again, people aren't really engaging with that, and that'll be the challenge. So the larger effort, it speaks to, with this communication norms summary of RChain, it speaks to the larger aspect of how does a co-op organize and function. And the presentation from Lumio really was a tremendous effort in explaining, how a decentralized organization can work and function and organize. But using these new tools, there's this transition and period in which people have to get acclimated to it. So how that's going to happen, we have to figure out. But I think using Discord, it'll be a progression. It'll be the evolution.
So the other thing is that if you're doing something, Tampa Bay, it's geographically, there is one place that everybody could drive to in a half an hour, I would think, right?
Exactly. And we've actually had a couple RChain meetups. We had one in downtown St. Petersburg where most of everybody in the Tampa Bay Shards was there. So that's the beauty of everyone except for the Ned and a couple members from Africa. Everyone in the Tampa Bay Shards, that they've already personally met everyone in the group. So
Yeah, because that's huge.
exactly.
And is there? Do you have a regular in-person thing, or do you know when the next one's going to be?
No, we don't. So I'm still working through this initial challenge of, identifying what tool we want to use for real-time communication and actually get people using it. So we're going to regroup with Discord, and I'm kind of leading the charge as far as getting people coalescing around this effort. But I can only be as effective as the participation from others. So that's where communication is an essential important part. So we've only kind of pieced this together about 3 weeks ago, and the past week and a half it's been kind of quiet, but I think we'll start to get some progress here in the coming couple weeks.
Yeah, most of my experiences was at the Web Consortium. For 15 years, I worked at the Web Consortium, and one summary of it is that I give to people is that it was knowing how often you have to get people in the same room so that they can be effective at a distance. So you actually have the opportunity to get everybody in the same room. You said you've done it once or twice?
Yes, not everyone was there. So we've had two RChain meetups, and the last one was in downtown St. Petersburg. So yeah.
Okay, you also said you just started 2 or 3 weeks ago. Were the two meetups within that 2 or 3 week time frame, or before that?
The first one, we may have had one or two. Well, the first one or two were prior to that.
Okay.
And that was more the effort from the RChain marketing group when they were around.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've been meeting up for several years in Tampa, occasionally, with the blockchain meetup groups there.
Yeah, we have a organization called Block Spaces, which is in downtown Tampa, and it's blockspaces.io, which is actually brought a larger community of people interested in blockchain and cryptocurrencies together, and this is where we've all kind of met. And we have events, weekly events, mining Monday, trading Tuesday, general meetings on Wednesday. So there's something going on every day. It's we're covering Bitcoin Cash, EOS, and but it's a tremendous center for learning. Their primary focus is education. And out of that, we're spinning off blockchain development. I'm actually part of a group that meets on Thursdays for enterprise blockchain development. We're working on a insurance accidental death and dismemberment policy blockchain solution on Corda. So, and it's good for me because I'm learning the world of development. But the idea is we're going to have projects coming out of block spaces which will need to run on a platform. And we're kind of building our own little micro portfolio company universe. And I'm wanting RChain to be a important component of that.
Okay, so this has clearly got critical mass here.
Yes.
What's the actual space that they meet in?
So we've actually recently moved to a place called the Tampa Bay Wave, which is a startup incubator in downtown Tampa. We're actually going to be there for just 6 months. We're actually in March moving to the Embark Collective, which is a new startup incubator that's starting in downtown Tampa, which is created by Jeff Finnick, who is the owner of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he's a multi-billionaire who's doing all sorts of development in downtown Tampa. He's a partner with Bill Gates in this development. But he wants to create downtown Tampa, or Tampa Bay area, as a incubator for the startup community, kind of like what San Francisco is on the West Coast. His vision is to create Tampa Bay as the East Coast San Francisco.
So these buildings, is it straightforward to hold a meeting? Do they charge you to use the building, or?
So we have so the membership. There's different tiers with membership. The entry level is the $30. So typically the members are the meetups are open to anyone. They're free to members, but there's a nominal fee to someone who's not a member.
Right, but if you want to actually host a meeting, if you want to make a new meeting.
Oh, okay. With that, there's probably right. There's some type of charge for that. I'm not sure what that is. Gabe and Rosa, Gabe Higgins, Rosa Shores, they're the founders of Block Spaces. So, and I don't know what the associated costs are for hosting or for
Okay, so it's not like the 5 of us on this call could just say, "Oh, let's meet Saturday afternoon," and go there. We'd have to. Probably.
Yeah. Right. It's right. There's now if you're a member, you would probably get some type of discount as far as hosting presentations. But right, there's a structure in that. Is you just can't. If you're a member, you can certainly just show up and have an impromptu meeting. But anything that's presented as part of the Block Spaces program, this is a sponsored Block Spaces presentation. Then there would have to be a associated cost with that they would charge.
Well, I was
historically, they haven't. Charged in most cases. They sort of promotionally building their community, and so they.
The reason I brought it up is that if you're not seeing as much engagement on Discord or Mattermost or whatever as you'd like, the natural way to get it is to get people in the same room, and then they have something to work on, and then they work on it, asynchronously after that.
Right. So, that's something to consider, is to have a regular RChain meetup at Block Spaces at the Tampa Bay Wave.
The other thing is there a critical mass of people that are already going to these things that are, an overlap?
Yeah. Yes. Some are better attended than others. The best attended is the biweekly general meeting. So we'll get upwards of 12 to 20 people at that. Others are going to be more sparse. Mining Monday, you'll get just a handful. And Trading Tuesdays probably that's a little bit better from what I understand. But the attendance tends to fluctuate. It's with the price of Bitcoin. Yeah, sure. This time last year, towards the end of 2017, there were 100 people attending the general meetings and into the first month or two of 2018. But then as the price of Bitcoin kind of waned, attendance dropped off. So there was the people who there's two camps. There's people who are interested in cryptocurrency and the financial gain aspect of it, and then there's people who are interested in the underlying technologies, the blockchain and the distributed ledger technology. That's going to be a smaller pool of people, but they're hardcore. I mean, they're there every week, going to the different meetups. So. But the goal is to broaden and widen that group of hardcore enthusiasts of blockchain, and how that's going to happen has to be will have to be determined.
Mhm.
But that's kind of the state of affairs of where everything's at right now.
So what do we have? Like 15 people at the RChain event on October 30th.
Yeah, 10, maybe 50 might be a little bit on the high side. Certainly, 10 or so. And we were talking. Chris Williams. I think Joshy's been working with Chris Williams on Rolang. He was the creator of the coin faucet on the Raspberry Pi. So he was showcasing that. And then we have another project called Pocket. Which is well, it's it's a little bit you all probably understand a little better than I do, but it's that framework that you need that's built on top of a blockchain. It's for developers, so it's make a web app developer's life easier, so you don't have to have a full backend platform running. It's it connects to that.
Suppose I wanted to read about that. Do they have a presence?
So they're going to be going live here in the first quarter next year. So they have they created a demonstration app called Banana Quest. The idea that there's bananas. They're going to have a pub crawl sometime here in the future as a marketing effort, where you have these.
No, I just mean, do they have a homepage? Do they have
a homepage? Yeah, Pocket. So POKT.network.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's Pocket, and they're out of the part of Box Spaces and Tampa Bay Wave. So and they're going to be Pocket, from my understanding, is going to be working with RChain. There's a partnership that's forming, so to help facilitate web development on RChain using the Pocket network.
They're a reflective portfolio company, aren't they?
I don't remember seeing them. Unless it's something fairly recent.
But basically, if you can develop a mobile app that uses RChain, you don't need to run servers. And I think it uses their token or something.
Cool.
But the focus is on mobility.
Right.
This looks like Discourse. Yeah, this is Discourse. I wish RChain had used this. Oh, well. They're doing it free now for open source projects.
And what exactly is Discourse?
It's forum software, but it's really good.
Oh, okay.
It does stuff like you can't just join up and send Viagra links, and you can choose to receive stuff by email if you're an old curmudgeon like me, and stuff like that.
Okay.
It's really quite good.
I guess the RChain worldwide is using that, I believe.
There's a server running, yeah. Let's see. I thought I saw something where it was free for open source.
I think you can install it, right?
Yeah, you can self-host, but this is free hosting. for community-friendly GitHub projects. Oh, it's right now. Remember what it is? You have to show that you have 40 or more collaborators or something. Oh, 15 plus contributors. Oh, and the URL is in their space. Bummer. It's always better if it can be turned around. discourse.rchain.coop. But anyway. Yeah, Derek is trying to figure out what to do with forum.rchain.coop. Boy, I would switch to this in a heartbeat. I don't know if you can import stuff, though. Yeah.
Is anybody using forum.rchain.coop?
Occasionally. Yeah, Derek was saying, oh, we ought to shut it down because all the stuff is months old. And I'm like, oh, no, the point is that you can find stuff that's months old.
No, yeah, there's definitely some good conversations there, but it didn't seem to quite gain the critical mass that we'd hoped it would.
Well, yeah, the other thing is Michael Birch was the main answerer of questions.
Yeah. But yeah, too many channels is not a good thing for community.
3 is the right.
Is the right answer.
Well, you probably need something different for real time and async. You probably need something different from async and static.
Oh, right. But yeah, this is on the this is quasi static, right? I guess would you
definitely async.
Async, I see. But we're using GitHub and Confluence sort of in that same way.
Yep.
So I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, wikis I put under static, but anyway.
Well, I'm saying like just the bug and issues.
Yeah, that's definitely async.
Async, yeah. So that's anyway. You could add that on the second row here, second column.
And then there's Lumio.
Yeah, Lumio definitely doesn't have critical mass. I mean, there is an RChain Lumio, but there's no active discussions right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also Jira is in that same cell, Dan.
Did I already put that?
So this is where there's a lot of async channels, I guess is what. And then Confluence is sort of the static, sort of.
Yeah. Is that what they call it? They call it something else, don't they?
Pretty sure it's Confluence. They might call it Wiki or Jira Wiki. I don't know.
That was a big eye opener for me, realizing that. Oh, here it's called RChain Wiki.
Yeah, but I think behind the scene, I think it's Confluence. Oh no, it's just called Wiki. So, but
these things are so horrible. It's like, can you just give me a web page? Does it have to spin and go do it?
Yeah, you see in the upper right it says "Welcome to Confluence." So
yeah. Yeah, and our welcome rituals are not connected to these things very well.
Exactly. Yeah.
And using them to form group memory.
Really
almost everything happens over Discord, and then it doesn't get captured anywhere else.
Or YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to roll off pretty soon.
Yep.
Other things in my day. Dan, if you could post the link to the Python you were showing earlier in the hour, that'd be helpful for me.
Right.
Looks like I'm going to have to pull dev build into my local environment to use this stuff.
Where is a convenient place for you?
Right where you're at's fine. Because I posted the proto changes you made, so you could say an example of using it.
Oh, wait. This doesn't use. I think you're asking for JavaScript.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, the client side of whatever this is. Sorry. Yeah, I wasn't sure whether it was what I was looking at.
Actually, let's see.
Now, this is quite a relief that I don't have to, at this point, pull in all these crypto libraries and Blake hashing into the client to deal with this. I can put that off.
Right.
Because what I'd really love to get to is where I can, show the community some wallet UI, talking to wallet contracts. I think that would be good for many reasons.
Yep.
Okay, cool, Dan. Thank you so much. And Steve, it was good getting to know you a bit and hearing about Tampa Bay. Jim, always good to see you too.
Yes, nice chatting with you as well.
All right.
And are you doing anything with directories, Ed?
Directories? No, but what kind of directories do you mean?
Well, like users. I mean, the first thing is directories of contracts.
Oh, right. So what I have intended is that the wallet app would have a local address book or a list of aliases that you could say, oh, this is Jim's public address. So yeah, that I have planned, but no, I'm still struggling with just getting some of these basic things going, and it's all surmountable given time and energy.
Yeah, my approach is keeping everything in the DID directory, the decentralized identifiers.
Well, yeah. So Chris has made a big request that the RChain registry follows DID standards, and then that would make a lot of other things straightforward. So yeah, well, the wallet will need to use the registry, and so if that were DID compliant, that would be awesome.
I guess I should look at that code, huh?
Well, you could, Chris, look at recent comments from Chris on Discord, and he's made that request or put in a Jira ticket for it.
All right.
Yeah, it's not much of a difference. So it's more of using the convention and agreeing on the DID. I guess it's called a method. Whether it be called RChain, ID : RChain : blah 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 or something.
Well, I presume it's simply a recursive map. They've gone that far, but that's what we need is the
Did you say recursive map?
Right.
Is that what you said? Okay. Yeah, so look for a message from Chris it's probably in the wallet channel. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys.
Bye-bye.
See you, Ed. Have a great day. So, hey, Jim. So, yeah, I think good. Now that we have the Tampa Bay Shards channel on Discord, so we'll start getting some communication going. And I think the first order of business, one thing that we can start to discuss is, this evolution of the hardware provisioning. Initially it's going to be everyone will have their own computer that they'll use to connect with and bond with, and then at Jeremy's suggestion, the next phase would be working towards having 3 virtual machines out there that are, pooled resources of Tampa Bay shards. So, and then beyond that, we'll figure out what the next steps are. But I think that'd be kind of a goal to to figure out what the plan is, have a plan for moving from individual computers to having 3 virtual machines. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I guess my concern is funding
Yes.
the virtual machines, but so I'm basically, until we're ready to go live on mainnet and earn.
Right.
I'm hesitant to pay for the virtual machines for the Tampa Bay network. I think we should.
Well, that's part of the conversation as well, as far as what the funding. I don't think it should be necessarily individuals, flipping the bill. I think it's once mainnet is up, and then there's transactions are flowing, and then individually we're earning through the transactions. That revenue can be allocated, pooled to help pay for a Tampa Bay shards, the 3 Tampa Bay shards virtual machines. So it's the goal is that it'll be self-funded. The Tampa Bay shards will self-fund itself.
Right. I have a old spare machine. I think there's other members that have spare machines they could run a node on. I think
Sure.
Bonding as many nodes as we can would be worthwhile. And
Yep.
I think ideally people could run their own nodes. I mean, the hard part to figure out is the permissions. Who's allowed to connect to the node and execute on it?
If everyone's running their own node, then they're the ones they're kind of siloed off. Only they have permissions to run their own node. It wouldn't be a group effort. If I had my computer running connected, I wouldn't want someone else having permissions to my computer.
Right, but if you have applications that are running that need to access the gRPC ports of the node, they have to, unless they're running on the same machine, you have to allow them, with firewalls or whatever, SSH tunnels. Yeah, I'm getting into details here. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's you make a good point. So what's going to be all the requirements for running an individual node, and then kind of define what that is, and then. But I think that's phase 1, and phase 2 is the migration to where it's that cooperative pooled effort of having 3. Having the Tampa Bay shards virtual machine, that with the idea that that's being self-funded by Tampa Bay shards. So in the individual computer, what all the requirements are. Maybe that's something that you and Jeremy could. Well, we can start to discuss that. So that can be a topic of discussion in our Discord channel.
Right, and I mean, when we have actual apps that we want to run,
okay,
right, somebody's going to run that from their phone. Obviously, they're not running a node on their phone.
Right.
But
Right.
we can work it out and experiment. And really, we have to consider this whole thing of experimenting. I mean, we don't know what the requirements will be to run a node. We're going to
Right.
have to try it. That's the way we're going to find out.
Yeah. Yeah.
This machine here, I think is 8 gigs. Maybe it's only 4. But
Okay.
my old machine. So
Yeah.
if I run a node on that machine, I don't know what the limitations are, right?
Yeah. A lot of unknowns at this point in time for hardware
Right.
specifications and
And
configuration.
this is what we're going to learn about.
Yeah.
When we set this up, it's an experiment.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll be able to run the performance tools on our network, and we should think about TB Rev. Okay, we're going to be issuing. I mean, in order to run the thing, we have to issue Rev
Yes.
on our network. Okay, in our Genesis wallets, there has to be tokens.
Yeah, that's going to be our medium of exchange in order to operate and finance, and that's going to be the fluid that's going to make things work.
Right. So
Okay. So
yeah,
TB Rev, I like that.
So you can. Okay, basically, we can say, okay, anybody who runs a node, gets 1,000 TB Rev bonded. Okay, and if their node doesn't run, they lose it. But
okay, yeah. Well, so that's the policy. So we're going to have our own governance
right.
policies of what are the do's and the can't do's and the penalties and so forth. So and the idea that all of those become smart contracts to where they become automatic.
Yeah.
Hopefully and ideally.
Right. And hopefully other communities will be working on the same developments, and we can actually get those contracts written for all of us.
Yeah.
We do a few. Africa does a few.
Okay.
Croatia does a few.
Right.
And we can build that infrastructure of proving contracts, and that's really the hard part, is proving them. But until we have Venus, proving our contracts is going to be important. Venus, we get to specify behavioral typing, which can prevent misbehavior.
Okay.
Of a contract.
And when you say proving the smart contract, meaning proving that it works, or proving it in what way?
Yeah, proving that it's only possible to get the desired outcome.
Okay. Right.
The desired behavior out of it.
Desired behavior. Okay.
And the Rolang is much safer than, let's say, Solidity for Ethereum.
Okay.
It's
right.
much safer basic, but it's still possible to have exploits.
Okay.
You have some non-determinism, et cetera, that could be exploited.
Okay.
So until Venus, when we can constrain the behavior rather than the function.
Okay.
We will have, the financial contracts will be very we'll need a lot of auditing.
A lot of, you said auditing?
Auditing, yeah.
Okay.
security auditing.
Security
Well,
audit.
really, you really, but what, I don't, not even sure how. I'm just echoing Greg's concern.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've been at it a long time. I think we've taken the next step here.
Yeah, I think so.
Uh,
So I'm going to put a little greeting into our TB Shards channel and introducing it, and then we'll work on getting some activity in that channel.
yeah, I think we should be thinking about anyway meeting relatively soon, face to face.
Yeah, well, I think so. I watched this. They were talking about it. This presentation. It was about an hour long on decentralized organizations. I think when we meet, that has to be it's a special thing with bringing people together. Scheduling. So we have to have an agenda. We have to have we're meeting for this particular reasons or these reasons, and we need decisions to be made. So we need to, and that's what Lumio is used for, is to identify what are the topics of discussion that need to be discussed at a physical group meeting. So right now, if we were to meet, what would we be discussing?
Well, we probably each be giving our vision of what we want TV Shards to be and
Okay.
want to be included. And really, the first stage of any sense making is well, and there's pattern languages here, so it gets complicated awfully quick.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of components, but
Well, go ahead.
Developing a sense of vision is something we can do together better than we can do asynchronously.
Right. So
eliciting concerns, and one of the main patterns here is that every concern, you have to elicit concerns of each person. You have to draw them
out. Sure.
Of each person, and they all have to be addressed. And I think things like our scope, the scope of our activities, and things like this. It's important for us to sort of come to some kind of concurrence on what that is.
Okay.
What's the scope? What concerns people have? What questions there are? What questions can be done asynchronously as well. But there again, it may be easier to draw them out face to face.
Yeah. So let's use the kind of the hierarchy of communication. So we're using real-time communication through Discord, and through that, let's start to collect what some of the topics are, our thoughts on. We use Lumio. Start using that as a tool to gather what the topics will be that we want to address for our physical meeting. And then once everyone's comfortable, we made some progress with that, then have that physical meeting. So we want to get the most bang for our buck with the time and effort. So and we're kind of learning. We need to learn develop a protocol for how to function as a decentralized organization.
Yeah, there's a lot of different kinds of meetings that you have. I mean, sometimes an open space is appropriate, where uh, where you're really doing exploratory type
Yeah, and
investigations.
right, and I think maybe that first
But
meeting.
I think you're right that our first meeting should have direction.
Right.
We should come out of it with something done.
Yeah, and I think maybe since we have Ned in California and the two guys in Africa, maybe that first meeting should be on Zoom as opposed to a physical meeting, just so they feel included.
Yeah.
I think having it on Zoom first, and then we need to come up with the discussion as far as, okay, we're here in the Tampa Bay area, and the people here locally can meet physically.
Yeah.
How is that going to impact, or what are the thoughts from people who can't physically be here? What do they want to get out of meetings that are here physically that they can't attend? So how are we going
what I would suggest for an open meeting, more or less, and it wouldn't have to be open necessarily, would be a office hour type format, where a number of people have an office hour, where you might have an office hour, and then it could have a pre-planned agenda or not.
So are you saying the individuals in the group would have that, or there would be a specific Tampa Bay Shards weekly office hours? Because I think getting people to commit to having their own personal office hours, maybe I think first it's just going to be just getting people to talk on Discord. If we accomplish that, then we're making progress, because the communication needs to be. We need to get people more engaged. It can't just be just the two of us. I think it has to be that broader community in order for it to really take root. If we wanted this to be truly a decentralized organization with participation from the members, we've got to get the group members communicating.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I was thinking, a Tampa Bay meeting, sort of like RSong has its hour, EU has its hour.
Yeah, I think that's something to work towards. I think it's having a office hours and a physical meeting where people physically meet. We're not there yet. I think those are certainly, we want to work towards those, and I think we need to build up some capital here to get the most impact to make those happen, and we do that using the first two tools, the real time, using the Discord, and then using Lumio to start creating agendas and talking points, and then once we reaches critical mass, then then the ideas of having a physical meeting, and then out of that will be the weekly office hours. But I think we gotta, things have to happen in order to get there.
Yeah, we have to get on the same page. I mean, you're talking like nothing's happening. Well, we, independently been talking to Jeremy and to.
Yeah, independently. See, that's the thing. They're all independent conversations, and it's not a Tampa Bay Shards. It's that cohesion. I mean, I think of it as it's a decentralized organization, but it's an organization. But that's decentralized. So it's what this the group itself, and it's we haven't coalesced yet. Everyone's going off doing their own thing. But that's their own thing. It's not a Tampa Bay Shards, and that's creating our own identity, our own brand, identifying yourself and, knowing what, Tampa Bay Shards is and the vision and all that, that's, that's, there's the individual thing, which is great, but it's that collective intelligence. And that's what we need to start developing is the collective intelligence.
So we want to work in small teams, but we need that high bandwidth of communication.
Exactly. Yeah. It's people have to start identifying themselves as being a part of Tampa Bay Shards. Otherwise, they're just, they're part of the larger RChain effort. And everyone's a part of the larger RChain effort, doing their own piece.
Sort of like,
but
the people are a tendency at first to not associate their efforts with the CoLab, even though they were in the CoLab, so to speak. And
there you go.
It's a while for them to see value.
Right.
Becoming part of that CoLab label.
Exactly. It's that, how are you identifying yourself and your efforts? Are they just your efforts, part of the broader RChain cooperative, or now, in your example, hey, I'm part of CoLab. I am a valuable member, and these efforts are towards growing CoLab. See, that's where we want to get that identification with Tampa Bay Shards. That's it.
All right. I guess we've been on a long time. I started an hour before you came on.
You're a lot of effort. Well, thank you, Jim. So
we recorded this whole thing.
Okay, good. So we'll communicate further on in our new channel, TB Shards, on Discord, and start getting other members involved as well.
Yeah, I'll post a link to this video where we start talking.
Okay.
About TB Shards.
Yeah, tremendous. That'd be great.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay.